It's a Minefield is an audio exploration produced by us, people who ride the waves of mental and emotional distress.
Our expertise comes from our lived experience, and these are the stories you'll hear, along with those who are on the journey with us.
The rollercoaster of mental health can be lonely and overwhelming, but we are all in this together. We'd love for you to join us. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Leon.
Hey, Hannah.
Sorry, I was waiting. Hi.
Hey, dude. Hey, comrades. I just did a really good interview.
With whom?
My friend Ruah, our friend Ruah. Have you ever heard voices?
No, I'd say I have intrusive thoughts. Well, I have like a constant stream of consciousness going on in my head.
Yeah.
Like my internal voice going on that's telling me certain things or commenting on what's around me. But that's as far as it goes for me. What about you, Chris?
I guess similar to yourself, have experienced and still experience intrusive thoughts. And I guess I have a fairly strong critical kind of voice that is going constantly. But I know it's not an external voice. It's that internal monologue, self-criticism kind of stuff that's always looping. But yeah, I haven't ever heard an external voice or anything like that.
You weirdos, aren't you hearing each other's voices?
We are.
So when I hear voices, and I say I hear voices attached to bodies, and so there's a distinction there. We're actually hearing each other's voices.
We are.
Weird, right? But people like Ruah hear voices without bodies. What are the reasons you've heard why people hear voices without bodies or voices that other people don't hear?
I think growing up, I attributed it very much to schizophrenia, and that hearing voices is part of that. Since I've been working in mental health for about 2.5 years, I've definitely come across a lot more people who do hear voices. And what that's taught me is that there's such a variety of people's experiences, and sometimes the voices are distressing, and sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're a really positive thing.
Like Chris, I mean, I don't have much experience with people who hear voices, but I think the first time I was exposed to it was from A Beautiful Mind. I remember watching that as a kid and being blown away by how kind of the brain can manifest or kind of, I don't know, maybe play tricks on you or do all those kinds of things. That was the first time I ever came across anything like hearing voices or schizophrenia. But yeah, it's not something I've ever really had to deal with personally. So it'd be interesting to hear about somebody who does have lived experience of that and what their life is like when they're living with it. Yeah.
So I'm incredibly delighted for you guys to hear this interview I had with our dear friend Ruah, who had sadly passed away quite recently from a very short illness. And this is a tribute to the generosity and absolute brilliance that Ruah shared. And I really got a lot out of this interview. In fact, it did change my life. So I'm really delighted to present it and can't wait for you guys to hear it. So I'm interested in your experience of hearing voices. So where to begin? I guess tell me about yourself and where you grew up and things like that.
Okay. Atamaria in my language means blessings for the day, blessings for you. And just to start off, I'll just say a few little things in Māori called takatapui, Ngati Awa, Ngapuhi, Airahi, Te Iwi. So I've just said that I'm takatapui, I'm part of the Rainbow Connection or the Rainbow Community. I'm from the far north of New Zealand, that's Ngāpuhi, and I'm also from the east coast of New Zealand, and Airahi means Irish. So all part of beautiful voice-hearing communities and traditions. All of those places I'm part of as well. So that's probably a grounding place. Brought up in South Auckland. So South Auckland is, I suppose if you ever saw Once Were Warriors, or maybe been to Mount Druitt, it was a bit like that. Yeah, except just replace the different cultures with Pacific Islanders. Māoris, it's a bit like that as well. It's a place that I grew up in. A lot of Māoris had moved from their ancestral lands into the city, so there's a lot of displacement, and a lot of the ways were lost. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually learned my language. It was frowned upon to learn the language, just as it was frowned upon to talk about the other world, I call it, the voice hearing world. Yeah.
So the other world, tell me about that.
Well, I don't know where did it start before trauma entered my life. I call trauma, there's a book written about it called The Hungry Ghost of Trauma. I call trauma the hungry ghost. For me, and my trauma as a child between the ages of 5 and 11 was sexual abuse by a family member. I can't remember much of that time. I'm not sure whether the voices were with me in that time or as a result of that time, but I was aware from a young age of other worlds, and it's very normal for Māori people and Irish people to be aware of those other places. We call it Wairua in Māori, which translates to two waters, the spirit within, the spirit beyond. I think the Irish people call it, I had a touch of the fae. I think that's the word there as well. It's very normal to be aware of those other things beyond my normal hearing, my normal sight, my normal feeling, my normal what I can smell. I was very aware of those things, but also knew from a young age that to talk about those things to the wrong people was dangerous. Fucking dangerous, I've got to say.
What could happen? What happened if you did?
Well, my mother is a voice hearer, my grandmother's a voice hearer, members of my family, the wider family, who were voice hearers, and it was talked about, if we talk about those things to the white man, the psychiatrist or the psychologist, you will be locked up, sent to a horrible place called Tokanui, which I think it's been closed down, but that was the place where voice hearers get sent to, and they get chucked on huge amounts of medication, become zombies, and it just fucks up their life. So we knew that from a young age, and in my journey so far, I've certainly met lots of Māori men who talked about that, and they were sent there and they were diagnosed with the, let's call it the dark side diagnostic word of voice hearing, which I consider a dark side word, schizophrenia. So they were sent there, and it just made a mess of their lives. So that was a danger of being a voice hearer as a Māori person in Aotearoa, New Zealand as well. And there's huge consequences as well. So of course, when trauma happened in my life, and I tried to make sense of that trauma or find a way through as an adult, I knew not to talk to my white psychiatrist, who was, sort of the top of the field psychiatrist, about voices, about what that is for me, what that's like for me, what it embodies, how I process that, how it's just a normal part of my life, a very normal part of my life, and sometimes a surprising part, sometimes a scary part, but it's my friend, and I love my friends, and I care about the emotional world of my friend, and I care about how I can be a good friend to those voices. I've learned to do that. I didn't know that in the beginning, but I've learned to do that.
When you speak about that, your actual eyes sparkle, and you always smile with your eyes, but you're smiling extra strongly with your eyes. So your voices you've heard for a long time, maybe 5, maybe before that. Is there a time you remember not?
Yeah, when I was on, I call them the medication cocktail years, when things started coming up for me in regards to my sexual abuse, and I went to talk to a doctor, and then they put me onto a psychiatrist about that, and then a whole bunch of different diagnoses, and then a cocktail of medication, and then the voices became distressed. And I believe directly because of the medication. So things became exacerbated, and things got out of control. The voices that sometimes were strange or unusual, or sometimes were comforting, became very distressed, and the voices in their distress, they wanted out of here. They wanted to leave this plane and go somewhere else, and they wanted to take me with them.
So before the medication, you experienced voices. Firstly, do you have was there a number? Is there a number?
Yes. Oh, now this seems perfectly normal to me, so I'll just try and break it down to make it accessible.
Yeah.
Different types of voices. Some of the regular voices in my life from a kid, and even now, actually, I probably call it the up high voice, which means when I'm in high places, or when I'm on a hill, or when I'm on in an apartment building that's very, very high, I will hear voices saying, "Isn't this amazing? I think you could fly. I really think you could fly. And why don't you just have a look and see what it's like? Which way is the wind blowing? It would be easy just to meet the ground slowly and beautifully. But you could fly. You could really, really do it. I believe you can do it." That's the voice was the seductive, scary voice for me, which still happens every now and again.
No.
And I talked to my mother about this when I was a kid, saying, "Mum, when I'm up high, I hear a voice telling me to jump, to just fly." And my mother says, "Yes, I have the same voice as well.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?"
Yeah.
As well. It was scary because I know that if I jump off a high place,
Yep.
gravity will take over and I will die. And even though this particular voice, the up high voice, let's call it, had all these beautiful rationales for how I could actually fly, or if I was feeling bad about life, how I could just fly away from that bad feeling and just fly off somewhere else, I know that that's not true, that I would physically die. Maybe I might be spiritually released, perhaps, but that's the up high voice. So that's an example of the up high voice.
Can I ask, does the up high voice have a gender, a pitch? Is it located somewhere around your body?
Great questions. Yeah, it's the tone of it is, you imagine somebody close to you saying, "Pass the butter, darling." It has that tone. It's a male voice. It's a very intelligent voice. It's good at rational arguments, and it's also it's a seductive voice. So it's alluring. It's nice to listen to, and it also talks about how I can be free of those things that are burdening me, are harassing me as well. So it sounds like maybe a therapist might sound, with the way that it argues its point, in gentle ways and in seductive ways. So that's the voice for me.
So now this is my interpretation. So it sounds like this voice, there's an aspect to enjoying freedom, and there's an aspect to commanding,
Yeah.
or seducing. Would you read that as seducing suicide or seducing play, or like?
Yeah, freedom from the limitations of whatever's weighing me down. Whatever's weighing me down.
And the thing is that Ruah has a solid sense of the effects of gravity. Yeah, that's interesting. Is there another voice?
Yeah, I think when I was on all sorts of meds, and I can name some of them as well that I remember. Yep, lithium.
Yes.
Carbamazepine,
Yes.
Tegretol, Prozac, imipramine.
The big O, olanzapine.
Oh no!
Nice. Dodge that bullet.
Dodge that one as well. I remember those particular ones because they were the big cocktail that I was put on, because they were trying me on different things, and they were saying, "Oh, it's not working how it should work," and I've got to say, the voices told me before all of this. The voices said to me, "Listen to your psychiatrist, white man, and you'll come off the meds. It might take a couple of years." The voices says, "Listen to your psychiatrist, you'll come off the meds. It might be 2 years or so." And so I believe the voices over what was happening as well. So the voices told me when I first went to the psychiatrist, listen to him, take the meds, you'll be off them in a couple of years' time.
God, that's interesting.
I know, and that's what actually gave me hope, because they were doing horrendous things to me, and how I got off them, or how I had to be taken off them, is because they had all these brutal side effects all my life. Like I couldn't read a book, I was sleeping 18 hours a day, I was having visual hallucinations, the voices were being hugely exacerbated, and I did tell my psychiatrist about that. They were really scared. There was murderous voices that came to me in that time as well, telling me that they're going to murder me because I'm on the stuff that's bad for me. I had the voices of, I'll probably call them these addictive voices, were saying, hey, you need that shit. You got it. You need it. It's going to help you. I had all these other voices contending for space at that time. But the one voice I heard just before all of that was, listen to your psychiatrist. We'll be off them in a couple of years.
Was that a voice, or was that
a voice? Yep.
Was it high voice?
No, it was a female voice, actually. Yeah.
Has she been around for a while?
Yeah, she has. And I'd probably call her the divine feminine voice in my life. She's been around. And it was a female voice, and it was a sort of a voice that I knew that would kick down the walls and save me, protect me, watch out after me. There's just this nurturing, protective quality about that. And that's the same voice that said to me, oh, yeah, just listen to your psychiatrist. Don't worry, you'll be off the stuff in a couple of years' time. It's exactly what happened.
She sounds both protective and very wise.
Yes.
And nurturing.
She's a good one, absolutely.
And has she been around for as long as high voice?
From that time when I went to the psychiatrist, that I was acutely aware of her voice then, at that particular time, because it's sort of like, he was giving me drugs, and I instinctively knew it's going to do some havoc, some fucking havoc in my life. I need some comfort, some reassurance. She came along in the office. I remember being in the office and her talking to me while the doctor was talking to me, but her voice overrid that. It was like saying that to me. Yeah, just listen to him. Yeah, take them a couple of years, you'll be off. I didn't know how I'd be off because I was surprised. I thought, oh, maybe the meds will work or somehow like that, or maybe they'll get lessened or something like that or whatever. And I came off them because they had huge consequences. So the psychiatrist had to take me off all the meds. And I remember him saying that to me, and I thought, yep, the voices are right. So I felt happy. There's all the effects of being addicted to medication, which I was, and also all the body stuff that was happening for me at the time. But I certainly noticed over those 2 years, when I started coming off them, I had to be weaned off them over about a year. So it was, I certainly noticed how the voices were happy and less distressed as well. I never want to distress the voices in me. It's horrible. It's like, it was like being in a cell and having a whole heap of prisoners around you screaming about how distressed they are because of their circumstances.
From what it sounds like, from what I read or hear, is that when you started taking these amounts of medication, did more voices emerge?
It exacerbated and distressed the voices that were there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the voices that were there, they were a mixture of my echoed fears that the voices had picked up on and amplified. They were probably my ancestors who believed there was another way to be healed apart from the white man's drugs. Mm-hmm. They were things in my particular area that where I was staying with. I believe there was territorial voices in the places that I stayed. Very normal and for Māori people to believe that there's and to experience territorial, call them spirits or territorial taniwhas. They were all of that. And as well as that, there was these other voices, the murder voice. Let's call it the murder voice.
Yeah.
Which was saying, I'm going to get you. You're going to die. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Your life's going to amount to fucking nothing. You're fucking useless. Nothing's going to work. relentlessly happening for me as well. So the murder voice, for some reason, got attached at that time to me.
And did the murder voice appear when the meds appear and disappear when the meds stopped?
It dialed down. Every now and again I hear the murder voice, and I don't know even remember why, and I can't even reverse engineer it. Maybe it's just like being out, when we're out in the town and somebody's screaming in the distance. Maybe it's like that. That's what it's like for me. The murder voice just saying, I've got your number, I'm going to hunt you down, I've got friends, I'm going to fucking destroy you, take you apart, then I'm going to go after your family and friends. That's the murder voice. Imagine me telling that to a psychiatrist. That, straight away I'd be scheduled, sectioned, and zombified with drugs. I'd be a zombie.
And some of these voices have been around for a while.
Yeah.
Do they grow up with you? Are they your age?
Yeah.
Do they grow up with you?
Great question. What a great question. Yeah, I think they've been around. I don't think they're sects. I don't think they're like a fundamentalist religion. I don't think they're set. I think they grow with me, and they grow in spite of me, or they grow because of me.
Do they sometimes, obviously, I'm really curious about this. If you're making a decision, or if they have an opinion on what you do they sometimes argue, come to a consensus? Do you vote on topics? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, a really interesting phenomenon happens when I'm with other voice hearers. I do get how can I explain this? I get the impression that my voices are talking with their voices.
Yeah.
And one of my close friends actually lives close to where I'm recording this. We've had these occasions where she actually talks out loud in public when I'm with her to her voices. And she'll say something like, "Oh, shut up, I'm busy at the moment." Or, just wait a minute, I'll deal with you later. Or she'll have these little conversations and I'm just sort of there. But sometimes we call them our tribes, our voices. Sometimes my tribe will talk with her tribe and say, "It's all right," or "Welcome," or "Can we talk about this now? You've talked about these things, but can we talk about these things? Because we've been discussing stuff amongst our tribes and we want to talk about those things as well." So sometimes they'll lead our conversations.
Your voices can talk to their voices.
Yeah.
You won't hear their voices, but you will hear the resulting conversation.
Sometimes I hear their voices in process. Sometimes they'll hear my voices in process, or sometimes we'll come to this unified voice will happen between us because of the voices. They're singing in tune, or they're saying the same thing. It's very unusual. I know when I ran hearing voice groups with Katie Thorburn, who I've got to mention, we facilitated those sort of spaces. That started happening as well. And during the COVID, the pandemic, we ran those on the phone, which is, I don't know, for any hearing voice people, not advisable to run hearing voices groups on the phone.
Why not?
Because there's too much stimulus, there's too much stuff going on down one little earpiece.
Yes.
When I'm hearing voices, it's not I'm hearing down one earpiece. It's like I'm in a surround cinema space.
Yeah.
So there's a voice to the right of me or behind me or above me or below me or in the ground. There's different dynamics. Being in a voice hearing group, contending with what's happening outside me and then through the telephone, it's just too hard.
On a day-to-day basis, like when you're having a conversation, when you're meeting, when you're crossing the road, when you're at the shops, can the voices be distracting, or do they behave? Sorry, the terrible term. Do they?
Well, look, I'll give you an example. For me, the voices are, let's call them, for me, they're like glorious intruders. Glorious intruders. Let's give them a name, because they just appear, or it happens for me, usually at unexpected times. It's usually something unusual and revelatory. I'll give you an example. I went to see a prospective counsellor, a psychological counsellor, because I worked in a field where it's important to have supervision. I turned up, talked to the counsellor, and I had a voice saying, "Ask her about," and gave me a name. And I went, "What?" because she was talking about stuff and said, so I stopped and I said to the prospective counsellor, oh, that's why I remember the name now. Tell me about Ernest. I think it was Ernest, something like that. I think it was. And she went, his granddad here. Has he got a message for me? And it's sort of like, I just heard a voice say to me to ask you about this. And then she told me the story about her granddad in England, supporting her to go to Australia, and the whole story about what that was like. And she started crying, and it's sort of like, it was a big, beautiful deal. I wrote a poem about it because this is very special. I gave it to her. So that's one of the ways that the voices gloriously interrupt my life as well. They kind of know stuff. So that's one of the ways that the voices, love us, love other people.
Can I just repeat what you said? That's one of the ways. I'm about to cry. That's one of the ways voices love us and love other people.
That's how they do. They're not just, and I've certainly, worked in, psych wards where people's experience of voices is not that, or they're too scared to maybe tell the voices to just dial it down a bit, or say to the voices, can I give you a hug? Which I have to say to the lonely dragon voice. Can I give you a hug? They've been locked in this idea that all voices are evil.
What would you say to someone who's starting to hear voices that other people don't hear, and the voices are very scary? What would you say to them?
I'd say to them, just imagine if you were hearing a little kid saying those same things, what would you do? How would you respond? That's what I'd say to them. And if I heard a little kid, or it doesn't even have to be a kid, it can be an adult, saying those same things, I'd be thinking to myself, they are in distress. What can I do for them? What can I offer to them now? Are they hungry? Can I give them some food? Are they cold? Have they got somewhere to stay? Can I just bear witness to it all? As a loving human, can I just bear witness to it all without judgment and just see where this goes? Can I suggest other people who might be able to just help them with them as a person, not because of what they're saying, but just as a person? That's what I'd suggest they do. For me, I ask the voices, there's a voice I call the lonely dragon voice, that says to me, you're all by yourself, nobody understands you, nobody will ever understand you. You must leave this place, you must go, you must separate yourself as well. And I call this the lonely dragon voice, and that's been with me a long time. I'll say to the lonely dragon, do you want a hug? Can I just play some music and we listen together? And then the power of that voice just lessens as well, because that's the emotional need, I believe, that the voice is trying to tell us. It doesn't have the words, the emotional words, but it's trying to tell us something that it needs. So that's how I'll approach that voice. And that used to be the recursive cycle of depression voice for me. Now it's a lonely dragon. So that used to be the voice that would say, everything's bad, nobody understands you, there's no place in this world for you, people don't even see you, you'll just be off somewhere doing something by yourself, you'll have a lonely existence, probably nobody will love you because you're weird and unusual. Those are the narratives of the depressive voice. Now I've renamed that, so come to know that as the lonely dragon voice as well. So that's how.
Because it sounds like you've done a lot of work learning about listening, witnessing these voices, and these voices. I feel like these glorious. I don't even like saying intrusions. I'll just say these voices.
Yeah, or surprises.
Surprises.
Glorious serendipities, probably. Yeah, we always think of it and something intrusive as being sort of like somebody robbing our house. Well, yeah, it's sort of like, no, there's good intruders as well. Like the kiss you might get out of the blue at a party. We could say that's an intrusion, but it can be very beautiful.
Absolutely.
Or somebody just a total member of public doing something nice for you. We could say it's an intrusion, or we could say it's just something really destabilizing or something glorious.
Glorious intruders. I like this. Now, we both believe in nothing about us without us.
Yes.
And I wanted to see if any of your voices had anything to contribute. Is there anything, I don't know if you're hearing them now, is there anything your voices would like to contribute, say, mention?
I suppose they'd want to say it's all right, it's safe, it's important that what we're about gets heard. And it's important that what we're about gets heard by other people's hearts. Yeah. And especially those of you out there who are voice heroes. And there's a lot more than we think. And I've come across so many. And there's a lot more than we think. And and the voices and me really want to see those who feel distressed by the experience of hearing voices move from a place of distress to a place of just some empathy, maybe sympathy, maybe bearing witness in a compassionate way, maybe just loving, reaching out and loving, and just be open to being raw and be open to just developing something that's not stigmatizing or distressing, but something that's beautiful. Voices are the only thing that has given me hope to work in the areas that I work in. That's the only thing, because I can trust that they're with me, they want the best for me, they want the best for others. And on occasion, they may show me some harrowing things or say some harrowing things, or my voices might talk to the pain of other people's voices. But I have hope only from my lived experience that when we just give space for that pain and love that pain, befriend that pain, that things will get better. Hope will arise.
Do you think they've kept you alive?
Definitely. Right. And I know others that they've kept alive as well. I know others. But they've definitely kept me alive because they've cared for me. I mean, there's been voices like we've talked about the murderous voice and all the other things that have been contrary to that. But they've been overwhelmed by the loving voices, the nurturing voices, the divine feminine voices. They've been overwhelmed by that. And that's, I don't know, maybe, I don't know why that's happened. Some people, it's not so much that way, but I do believe that there's a loving, nurturing, caring voices in all of us. I think if we could listen to the voices in each other, we'd be really amazed of what we might hear. If we could listen, what we might hear. And I think it's just paying attention to the needs of those voices, that those voices start to grow and start to feel comfortable and start to make space through our lives and to other people's lives.
A final question. If you were to be offered $50,000 to get rid of the voices, would you?
No, because then I wouldn't be able to say, fuck you to the psychiatrist, which is worth more than $50,000. And also, what about those other people? The voices alerted me to. I wouldn't be able to just bring some love and some connection into their lives, not from me, but from the voices that enable them to, reach out and to remember those people. And also, I wouldn't be able to develop or grow in the emotional world without them. I mean, the voices help me learn about emotions, my emotions, other people's emotions, because they were emotive with me first. Before anybody else, the voices were emotive or showed me emotion first as well. So, no, I can't imagine. I would not do that. I think I'd be just a barren, soulless white boy. That's right. I don't believe medication is the answer. And there has to be lots more going on. And if you are one of those people who are having the experience of distressed voices telling you things or threatening things as well, instead of being scared or offering your fear, try offering your love in those spaces. Try offering your love and see what happens as well. For me, the standard interpretations and ways to solve, I'll put inverted commas, for it didn't work. First of all, they're from people who had no experience of it, so straight away there's no credibility from that. And they're usually spliced with lots of nasty drugs that did other damage for me. So yeah, just think a little bit more wider on how to see how those voices could actually benefit your life and the life of others around you as well. It will teach you something that could be life-changing. I do know somebody who has relentless voices, relentless threatening voices, and they've been able to be in a profession and rise to the top of a profession despite that. And I know that they say to these relentless voices, shut up, I'm doing some other important stuff there, and they shut up for a time as well. But it's a relentless thing for them. So, and they said to me that it's given them this amazing strength of purpose and determination to do stuff that really matters. And contrary to the voices around them. Now let's just think of the voices as the voices of our culture, the voices of, our life, the contrary voices that we have if you're doing something different or if you're stepping out into new frontiers. So it's enabled them, it's strengthened them. So yeah, let's see how we can see the voices as something that can grow our humanity and enrich us, our experience of being human.
Thanks for tuning in.
It's a Minefield is produced by Chris Jager,
Hannah Achilles.
And Leon Fernandes.
Audio by Lockie Hilda.
We're kindly supported by the Mental Health Commission of New South Wales.
You can reach out to us at iamf.org.au. And remember, we're all in this together.